This daf is sponsored by Mr. Danny Harris in memory of Miriam Hertzberg. We thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amud or a daf, please see the description box below. We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph Meseches Shabbos. This is Shabbos Daf 47a. The Gemara here continues. Rava is answering a question. The question is, why does Rabbi Shimon say it's prohibited to carry around a lit candle on Shabbos? The Gemara initially assumed that the reason was because you might put it out. But the problem with that is that even if you put it out, the halach is, according to Rabbi Shimon, a davar sheina miskavin is mutter on Shabbos. So the Gemara instead answers as follows: Hanach l'ner shemen upsila. Leave aside, this is Rava speaking, leave aside the case of a candle, oil, and a wick. Hoel denase basis l'davar ha'aser. The real reason why it's prohibited to carry that around while it is lit on Shabbos is because it has the halach of a basis l'davar ha'aser. Rashi explains l'davar ha'aser l'shalhevis. It's all a basis, it's all a support for the flame. In such a situation, Rabbi Shimon admits that it's muksa because the kli becomes a tafel to the shalheves, and therefore, just like the shalheves is muksa, so too is the kli. V'lav mishum dechayish likvi has nothing to do with the fact that Rabbi Shimon is suspicious that you might end up putting out the flame. That's not an issue because davar shein miskavin is mutter. Rather, Rava says the answer is basis l'davar aser. Gemara now continues. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Zera says in the name of Rabbi Asi, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Amar Rabbi Rumnas, in the name of Rabbi Chanina, in the name of Rabbi Rumnas, Li hitir Rabbi letaltal machta ba'afara. So Rabbi Rumnas said that Rabbi allowed me to carry around a shovel with its afer, with the ashes inside of it. It's not a problem. Rashi here explains, Amar Rabbi Rumnas, Li hitir Rabbi letaltal machta shalavona ba'afara. We're talking specifically about one of these shovels that carries the lavona, the frankincense, and it has ashes. Right now we think the afer is muksa. You don't need the afer. The Gemara right now thinks that the chiddush is, since the machta has a Torah's kli and it can be moved, so too you're allowed to move the afer. So that's what the quote is from Rabbi Rumnas, the heter of Rabbi. Amar le Rabbi Zera le Rabbi Asi. So Rabbi Zera said to Rabbi Asi, Mi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. Did Rabbi Yochanan really say this? Because again, this was Rabbi Zera quoting Rabbi Asi, quoting Rabbi Yochanan, going all the way back to Rabbi Rumnas, the heter of Rabbi. So Rabbi Zera said to Rabbi Asi, did Rabbi Yochanan really say this? V'atanan, but we learned in the Mishnah, Notel Adam benova evan biyado. A person can carry his son who's holding a stone, or kalkol, a basket v'evan besocha, and there's a stone inside of it. V'yomer Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Bar Bar Chana said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, again the same Rabbi Yochanan that's within this quote of Rabbi Rumnas, Bechalkala Malaya Peros Askinan, that we're talking specifically about a basket that has fruit inside it as well. In other words, if you would just have a basket with a stone, meaning a container with something muksa, that would be a problem to carry on Shabbos. Same thing in this case. You have the machta with the afer, it should be a problem. The only time Rabbi Yochanan said it was permitted was when there was fruit inside. Taimad is papiri. The only reason it's permissible is because there's fruit. Hales papiri lo, but if there was no fruit, it would not be allowed. So the Gemara says, Ishtomim keshachada. He was silent and he was confused for one moment. He didn't have an answer. V'yamar, and he said, Hachanami disbakartin. Then finally he answered, no, over here. This is the answer that Rabbi Asi is giving Rabbi Zera. In this case, there was kartin. Rashi says kartin is there was a little bit of leftover frankincense. There was a little bit of leftover lavona, and it was usable. You could use it for its good smell. And therefore, just like in that case, you had the fruits together with the stones. In this case, in the machta, you have the afer together with the kartin. So Amar Abaya says kartin be Rabbi Michashi. What kind of answer is that? You think kartin, shiure lavona, leftover lavona, that's something that in the house of Rebbe would be chashav? Rebbe was a nasi, Rebbe was a wealthy person. That wouldn't be enough to be considered chashav enough, really, to be considered that it's not muksa. And if you're going to answer that it's fit for poor people and that's enough, that's all we need, it doesn't have to be chashav to Rebbe. That's not true. Vatani, we learned in a brisa. Big day aniyim la'aniyim, if you have clothing of aniyim, then for aniyim it's considered to be clothing as far as halachas of tumah. Big day ashirim la'ashirim, if you have clothing of wealthy people, then for ashirim it's considered to be clothing. Avol daniyim la'ashirim lo, but if you have clothing for poor people that rich people have, that's not considered to be clothing. Rashi here explains. Big day aniyim, what is big day aniyim? Shalosh al shalosh. Let's say it's a very small garment, 3 by 3 etzbos. Or shechutan ava, or let's say it has thick threads. Have a begadim la'aniyim linyan tumah. That's considered a beged for aniyim as far as tumah is concerned. Big day ashirim, what are considered wealthy people's clothing. Shlosha al shlosha have a begodim la'ashirim. It has to be at least 3 by 3 tvachim. The kol shekain la'aniyim, obviously such a thing is going to be a beged for aniyim. Avol big day aniyim la'ashirim lo have a beged gabayu. If you have a beged of an ani that belongs to an usher, that's not considered a beged. V'lo mekabli tum, it's not mekabel tum. Hachanami bei Rebbe batli kartin. The same thing should be in the house of Rebbe, even though we're not talking about tumah. Here we're talking about muksa, but it should be the same thing. The kartin should be batal, and that doesn't help us at all. So they gave rather they give another answer. Elamar Abaya, rather Abaya answers, you know why you're allowed to carry around this machta? You know why Rebbe allowed you to carry around this shovel? Midi dehave a graf shel rei. It's similar to the case of graf shel rei. Graf shel rei is when you have excrement, you have something disgusting. The halacha is you're allowed to move it. You're allowed to take it out of your house. Rashi says, Elamar Abaya hadashari letaltal machta ba'afar mishum da'afra moyes ola liroso. It's disgusting to look at. It's like a graf shel rei. The Tanya Meseches Beitza mutar lo tzil ashba shebachatzer. You're allowed to bring a graf shel rei to the garbage. So the same thing over here. That's really the heter. So Amar Rava says shtei tshuvas b'davar. I have 2 responses to this answer. Chad graf shel rei mois v'haylo mois. Number 1, graf shel rei is disgusting. This is not disgusting. V'yod graf shel rei migli v'hay mechsi. Also, graf shel rei is uncovered. In this case, the shovel actually is covered. Rashi says all the machtos used to be covered. They used to have just a little bit of holes in them in order for the smell to come out of the lavona, but they were not things that were exposed. So Elam Rava, rather Rava gives another answer. Ki avinan bei Rav Nachman. He says when we were in the house of Rav Nachman, have a metaltalinon kinuna agav kitma. We used to move around these copper vessels that they used to have. They used to have fire in them. And it was used. They used to bring it in front of important people to warm them up, and they used to move it around. Agav kitma. They used to actually use the ashes. The ashes, the afer. Kitma is the ashes. The afer. The afer was actually usable to cover up rok, which is spit, or to cover up tsoa, which is excrement. So we used to use it. So essentially what Rav is answering is that's actually the same thing over here. Over here, it's not the situation where the afer in the machta is muksa, and the chiddush is you're allowed to move it around because the machta is not muksa, so even though the afer is muksa, it's not a problem. That's not what's going on over here. Actually, in this case, you were moving around the machta because of the afer. The afer actually was not muksa. Not only that, this kanuna that we used to move around, even if it had broken shards of wood which were muksa, the kitma was enough to make it that it wasn't muksa. So that's the same situation over here. The afer actually is not muksa, and that's why it's not a problem. So the Gemara here is essentially suggesting that if you have a little afer which is not muksa, you're allowed to move around a container even if the container has shivrei eitzim. So the Gemara asks on that idea, Meisei, we ask from a brisa, V'shavin, both the Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon agree when it comes to an old candle, Shem yesh ba shivrei psila she'asul l'taltal. If it has broken wicks inside of it, it's going to be a problem. You're not allowed to move it around. Now, broken wicks should be no different than shivrei eitzim and broken pieces of wood. So why are the broken pieces of wood not a problem and the broken wicks are a problem? Amar Abaya, so Abaya answers for that. Begalil shanu. That was taught in Galil. In Galil, broken wicks actually would pose a problem. Rashi explains here. Begalil shanu shechashuvos lan shivrei psila. In Galil, the shivrei psila were actually chashiv. She'en begadim shal pishtan mitzuyan lam. They didn't have clothing made out of linen. Hilkach lo batli, therefore it wasn't batal. V'nasa ner basis lan, and the ner would actually become a basis for these important but useless on Shabbos broken pieces of wick. And therefore, in that one particular case, it is usher. But if you have other candles or other containers with broken eitzim or other broken items, as long as you have other things in there that are not muksa, it's not going to be a problem. Levi bar Shmuel ashkachinu l'Rabbi Abba u'l'Rav Huna bar Chia davakaimi apischa devei Rav Huna. So Levi bar Shmuel found Rabbi Abba and Rav Huna bar Chia. They were standing at the door of the house of Rav Huna. Amar lahu, so he said to them, Ma'u lahachzer mita shel tarsiyim b'Shabbos. Am I allowed to assemble a bed of tarsiyim on Shabbos? Rashi says that a bed of tarsiyim, it was essentially a mobile bed that people who used to work, they used to travel around and they would assemble and disassemble this bed. So are you allowed to assemble it on Shabbos? Amrulei shaper dami. They said to him, it's not a problem. It's not considered building. Also lakami de Rabbi Yehuda. They came in front of Rabbi Yehuda. Amar, he said, Haravu Shmuel da Amri Tarvayu. Didn't Rav and Shmuel both say, Hamachzer mita shel tarsiyim b'Shabbos chayiv chatas? That actually you're not allowed to do that. If you put together a mita of tarsiyim on Shabbos, you're chayiv chatas. Rashi here explains why would it be chayiv chatas? Chayiv chatas hu tchilas of a gamra. You're starting it and finishing it. V'nimtza osa kli. You're making a kli v'chayiv misham maka b'patish av l'chol gomri malacha. You're chayiv because of maka b'patish, which is the av of all finishing of work. V'lo misham binyan. Rashi here explains it's not because of binyan. De'ain binyan b'kelim. There's no such thing as binyan by kelim, but there's maka b'patish by kelim, and this is a kli. So Rashi says that's why Rav and Shmuel say you're chayiv chatas. So in any case, we seem to have here a machlokas amoraim, and the Gemara asks from a brisa. Meisrei, they ask from the following brisa: Hamachzir kanei menorah b'Shabbos chayav chatas. If a person puts together or reassembles the branches of a menorah on Shabbos, the person is chayav chatas for that. Kanei sayad, and they used to have these were this was a kli, this was a utensil used by plasterers. So then lo yachzer, that you shouldn't put it together on Shabbos. Vim hichzer pater avolaser. But if you do it, it's pater avolaser. Rashi here explains. Kanei shel sayad and hatachin and malavnin habayis besid. They used to put plaster on the houses. Yeshlam kanim shel prakim v'nosein matlis barosha v'shorn besid hamachay v'tachas habayis. Essentially, they used to add on these little components to this rod. So it was a rod that these plasterers used to use, and that's what they used to use to put the plaster on. Essentially, it always needed to be a different size. If they were doing it low down, they would need a short kana. If they did it higher up, they need to make it a little taller. So they're constantly putting on, adding on, or taking off different parts of the rod. Potter, so in that case, it's potter. That's something you're always putting together, taking apart. That's potter avoloser. It's not going to be chayiv. But when it comes to, again, kanei menorah, chayiv chatas. And then Rabbi Simai says, the Braiser continues, keren agula chayiv, keren pshuta potter. It depends what kind of keren you're assembling. Sometimes chayiv, sometimes potter. Rashi explains, keren agula, v'keren pshuta shneim min kli zemer. We're talking here about different kinds of, essentially, flutes. V'wasa nekavim kikvar, it has holes in it. Umachnes ben chalilim, umotzin kolos harvi. You put in these tubes that you're adding to this flute, and it makes different sounds. Keren agula, the round one, Maisa Umanhu, that was made by a craftsman. They would put it in there with strength, and that would be a malacha. But by a keren pashat that was not made by an expert, they would put it in, but there would be plenty of space. That they would take apart often, and it was potter. Katani mihas b'knei menorah. The point of this whole brayse is that by the knei menorah, what does it say? The chayiv that you're chayiv. V'adin lemita shel tarsim. Shouldn't the same be true by mita shel tarsim? You should be chayiv. So why did they initially answer? Why did Rabbi Abba and Rav Huna Bar Chia, why did they initially answer that it was potter? That it was not only potter, they said that it was actually mutter. So the Gemara answers, Inu damar ki aitana detanya. They follow the author of they follow the opinion in the following brisa, which says, Melavnos hamita v'karos hamita, these are coverings that are used on the legs of a bed, or the legs of a bed itself. Ulevachem shel skivas, so skiva, that refers to, Rashi explains, Levachem shel skivas, eitz katan kamin daf, shetoken b'keshes. This was a piece of wood that they would put onto a bow, with a bow and arrow. Shakarn abal shtora sha'olav moshe chachetz. They used to use it. They used to draw the arrow onto that piece of wood. So those items, the brisa continues, lo yachter, you should not put that back together. Vim hichser potter, and if you do, it's going to be potter. And we're going to continue with this brisa and see the Tana, which these Amoraim follow on Daf Mem Zayin Amud Beis in the next video.